So one of the things that I realized recently was that I haven't really done a pickups video in a while. I actually talked about a few games that I picked up when I took a spring break a couple of months back, but really, Steam or otherwise, I haven't really done anything like that in quite some time as a dedicated video. So, considering that I am shifting the channel slightly more to include more console-based stuff, I figured, you know what, why not do a video about some of the games that I've recently picked up, although this first pickup was not a game at all, rather it was an accessory, and that, of course, is the Doom The Dark Ages controller. I'll see if I can get it to autofocus here, and I have to say, I absolutely love this thing. I have a real soft spot for special edition controllers, and that's despite the fact that I am not a big fan of Microsoft just randomly raising prices across its games and accessories. I don't think it really had anything to do with, tariffs or shifting market conditions, which seems to be like the common talking point nowadays. I think they just wanted to jump in while they could and kind of slide in under the radar and raise their prices, so I'm not a big fan of that, and the only reason I bought this is because I only have one Xbox controller at present, and this one launched at $80, but thankfully Best Buy put it on sale for $60, which I thought was a lot more reasonable, and I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and take the leap on that because I did love the design of it, and honestly, I have been playing Doom The Dark Ages just a little bit so far on Game Pass, and so far I absolutely love it. And I have a little bit of a checkered history with Doom, right? Like I played the original way back in the day, and then I kind of hopped around on that series. Like Doom 2 I didn't spend a lot of time with, Doom 3 I absolutely loved, Doom 2016 I beat on the Switch, which was not the best place to play that game, but I still went for it all the way through. And then when it came to Doom Eternal, I played it probably about 5 or 6 hours, and I liked it, but I also thought it was a little bit over the top. I mean, don't get me wrong, overall Doom is an over-the-top game and everything, but with all of the movement mechanics, it just didn't really grip me in the same way. Although I suspect Doom The Dark Ages will very much stick with me because its whole theme of stand and fight just feels really, really good. There's certainly a weightiness to the movement. I'm not going to say it's not fast, it definitely is fast, but maybe not so fast where it feels like you're kind of gliding around on ice like some of the prior Doom titles. So yeah, when it comes to this controller, I just loved that they put so much love and care into making sure it was a perfect reflection of the Doom Slayer, and when I saw it on sale, I just couldn't help myself. Now, next up, this game I didn't grab because it's exceptionally rare or anything. I mean, technically it is very rare, but that'll make more sense in a second. But I grabbed it because I found a copy in really good shape, and I used to have this game, but I have no idea what happened to it, and I loved it when it originally came out on the N64, and it was fun to revisit it on the DS, and that would be Diddy Kong Racing DS, which, made by Rare, get it, exceptionally rare. Alright, sorry. But like I'd mentioned during that spring break video, I did start kind of getting back into the DS and 3DS library a little bit. I was messing around with emulation, which is still a video that I have on deck, I promise, no pun intended, but as I was kind of like going through this process of like, kind of cataloging all of my games, looking back through all of the different systems that I collect for, my collection of DS games was a little bit slim, and I was really surprised to see that I didn't already have this in my collection. No, it's not as good of a game as Mario Kart or even the Mario Kart DS version, I would say, but I still have a lot of fondness for this game just because it did so many interesting things when it first came out on the N64. For instance, the fact that you could fly I thought was just an incredibly cool thing, and while it's been forever since I played the DS version, I'm very much looking forward to popping this into my new Nintendo 3DS XL and checking it out one more time. And I know by all rights it would be a very easy game to emulate, but I do have some thoughts on DS and 3DS emulation about some of the reasons that I'm not super fond of it on the Steam Deck, at least not for every title, but I'll probably get into that into a dedicated video. Also, another thing that made this easy to pick up was the fact that I found it for just like 25 bucks, which is about the going rate if you looked up Diddy Kong Racing DS on eBay or someplace like that. But I love when you can find a game like this at a local shop in particular, not just because I like supporting local businesses, but beyond that, it's also nice to just be able to look at the case and the included instruction manual and make sure everything looks good, rather than just rolling the dice and hoping whatever you order from eBay really does show up like unblemished. If you're a collector, if you care about that kind of stuff. Personally, I do, but yeah, that's one of the reasons this was such an easy game for me to pick up. And honestly, it's for those exact same reasons that I picked up this next game, because I never had a copy of it for the 3DS. I have it for the PlayStation 2. I've emulated it before on the Steam Deck. I am almost positive I'm not going to beat this game anytime soon, but I still liked having it in the collection, so I could delude myself into thinking that I might. And that would be Dragon Quest VIII: Journey of the Cursed King, the 3DS version. And honestly, it's probably not as good as the PlayStation 2 version visually, but I'm guessing it has some pretty unique features on the 3DS that make it worth it. Now, unlike most of these games that I got a decent price or on sale, this was not really a super decent price, although again, for the same reason that I mentioned for Diddy Kong Racing DS, I did go ahead and take the leap on it, because this was about 80 bucks, which is not cheap for any game. Well, I guess in the modern age, it's, in danger of becoming the standard, I guess, but traditionally speaking, it's expensive for a pre-owned game. But honestly, these games tend to hold their value value pretty well, which I'm not overly concerned about, games holding their value necessarily, but I do really like having a curated collection of titles, so if I have a friend who wants to borrow a game, I can just, hand it to them and let them go off and enjoy it. Plus, we are probably, approaching the end of physical media for gaming, which breaks my heart to no end, but, you just gotta roll with the punches, as it were. But everything I've heard about this game is incredible. The brief time I have spent playing it just for testing purposes, I've really enjoyed my time with it. And, much like the Doom, well, not as bad as the Doom series, I would say, but similar to that series, I have kind of a checkered history with Dragon Quest. Like, I've played entries here and there for a little bit, but I never really beat one, with the notable exception of Dragon Quest Builders 2, which I don't think counts because that's not really a mainline entry, it's just a spin-off. But every time I have played these games, it has been very clear to me very quickly just how much love and care goes into them, and just how much time they spend trying to make a quality production. And anybody who plays this game for even 5 minutes, or any of these games, can tell just the music is incredible in these games, and that's always something that I appreciate. And next up, let's move to the Nintendo Switch, because obviously I've been compelled to buy some Switch games lately since the Switch 2 is coming out, and even though not every Switch 1 game is going to get a performance patch to play better on the Switch 2, I'm still excited to see if there are any just sort of native performance gains that you get from the beefed up hardware. And this is not even the best version of this game, however, since I own multiple copies of it across multiple systems, I decided I would go and take the leap just so I could have a portable version, since it was on sale for about $20, and that would be the Metal Gear Solid Collection. And again, I know this is definitely not the best way to play these games, right? I think the Switch version in particular had them capped at 30 FPS, which actually might have been the standard frame rate for Metal Gear Solid 2, now that I'm thinking about it. But I have a huge soft spot for Metal Gear Solid. That was the first game, the original Metal Gear Solid was the first one that really pulled me away from being a Nintendo fanboy back in the day and got me interested in the PlayStation ecosystem. And it's not even that I have no other portable way to play these games, because I do have the collection for the Vita, but the nice thing about the Switch is it is so easy to just drop it into a dock and immediately start playing it like on your living room TV, and I'm a huge fan of that. Even though I don't travel as much as I used to and portability isn't as much of a concern for me, I still like the idea of me just squeezing in a little bit of time if I'm like, a car ride, or if I'm on a flight somewhere or something like that, and then being able to drop it in and continue that progress, just in big screen mode in my living room is definitely appealing to me. And even though this game definitely has some, you have to download parts of it for it to work, at a discount, I didn't mind going ahead and taking the leap on it, again, because I have so much nostalgic fondness for the series. And in sharp contrast to my not necessarily loving the partial download required for a game like the Metal Gear Solid Collection, next up I did grab the Doinksoft Collection, which I had seen this on shelves at GameStop, and they wanted like $40 for it, and I was like, that's cool, but I don't necessarily want to pay that much for it, especially for a few games that I'm not really familiar with. But it does come with Gato Roboto, Gumbrella, and Demon Throttle. And it is an interesting collection, and when they dropped it to $15, I was like, that's a no-brainer, I'll absolutely buy that. And that's for two key reasons. One, I've already played Gato Roboto on the Steam Deck, and it is super fun, very basic monochromatic Metroidvania, but it just nails the fundamentals of what a good Metroidvania should feel like, and I'm really excited to spend more time with that, because I think that's a game you can beat in probably like 2 or 3 hours. Not a super long game, but given that I have a history of sort of dabbling buffet style into a bunch of Steam games to showcase them here on the channel, I haven't had a chance to actually beat it myself yet. And then when it comes to Demon Throttle, this game, it has no digital version. And I thought that was really interesting when they first announced that game a while back. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. But Demon Throttle can only be played in a physical version. So the fact that this is a cart that has 3 different games on it was, enticing enough on its own, right? $5 a game, that's not a bad deal necessarily. But also the idea that Demon Throttle can only be played if you have a physical copy was certainly appealing to me as, someone who walks between the realms of digital convenience and just being a physical collector. So yeah, $15 for this. I would say if you can find this, go ahead and take the leap on it. At least for Gato Roboto, it's definitely worth it. But yeah, I was just pleased to see that the Doinksoft Collection went on sale like that, and hopefully I can dive into it whenever the Switch 2 comes out here in about a week or two at this point, I think. And finally, the last physical game that I got, and I'm starting to notice a theme here. Most of these games that I got were both on sale, and also had something to do with the sort of divide between digital and physical collecting. And I did grab a physical copy of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, for the PlayStation 4. I already have a physical copy of this for the Nintendo Switch. I actually have the collector's edition for that through Limited Run, and I do have digital copies of it now, but there for a while you could not play this game because it just got delisted. And honestly, I would say this game is like the poster child for why you should have some appreciation for for physical media, versus digital media when it comes to gaming, because everybody, was really annoyed that this game got delisted and it wasn't easy to get there for a while. Then it came back in a physical copy, and I've sort of doubled up on that just in case. I imagine it probably will increase in value on a long enough timeline, but again, I don't really buy games because I'm like, ooh, what if this goes up in value and then I can sell it later on. But what I do like to do is make sure that I grab video games where I can, especially if I think they are going to be in danger of being delisted at some point. Maybe Scott Pilgrim's going to be totally safe from here on out, I have no idea, but I like knowing that I have a couple of physical copies just in case, which I wouldn't even say it's the best beat 'em up ever, but as somebody who's a huge fan of that, crunchy pixelated art style, grew up on classic beat 'em ups like Turtles in Time, for example, and the fact that it has a soundtrack by Anna Monoguchi, who I absolutely adore, was enough for me to go ahead and drop $15 just to have a redundant copy of it for the PlayStation 4. And then finally, I did grab a couple of digital games for the Switch that were also on sale, one of which I already talked about in a community post, I think earlier this month on the channel, or it might have been last month actually, now that I think about it. But I did go and grab Hogwarts Legacy while it was on sale. Even though I have a PS5 copy, I have a PC copy, so I could check it out on the Steam Deck. I'm really excited to sort of contrast and compare the experience, because one of the big things about getting that game onto the Switch at all, which in itself is kind of a technical marvel, is that the developers actually did sort of do some wizardry. Sorry, that's a terrible joke, but they really did do some wizardry where they took out certain assets that were in the more fully fleshed out versions of the game, like the PS5, and they would reuse certain assets to sort of make it work on the original Switch and make sure the game would actually run there competently. And the fact that they were willing to do that and sort of create this bespoke version for the Switch, I think is really interesting. And then I think they're doing the same thing for the Switch 2 version, which the whole reason I bought this was because it was on sale for about $17, and then it was only a $10 upgrade fee to get the Switch 2 version of the game, which comes out on launch day on June 5th. So I thought that would be a really good opportunity to kind of compare what that game looks like versus, how it plays on the Steam Deck, since I have experience playing it there. I beat it on the PlayStation 5 originally, so this will be the third different sort of bespoke version, I guess, of Hogwarts Legacy for me to check out and kind of, see, how those visuals actually stand up on the Switch too. But yeah, that's why I decided to go ahead and take the leap on that one, because if you buy just the complete version at launch, it's going to be like $60. But if you already have a copy of Hogwarts Legacy, you can upgrade for $10, or if you manage to snag it on sale, then yeah, you're getting it for like $27, which is like half of what you're going to pay at launch if you just get it, the Switch 2 version, period. And then finally, the last digital game that I got was also on sale for $30, although I had a Nintendo eShop gift card that I randomly found when I was sort of like cleaning out the studio down here and everything. My friend Maro, she got me an eShop gift card forever ago, and I lost it, and then I found it again, and I immediately used it to go ahead and buy a copy of Red Dead Redemption for the Nintendo Switch. Now, I know a lot of people were not very happy about this version of the game because there weren't a ton of improvements that were necessarily made to it. However, having now played it at least a little bit on the Switch Lite so far in anticipation of playing it on the Switch 2, I have to say, it still looks really good. Even at 30 FPS, it's certainly as good and probably a little bit better than what I remember playing it when I first played it on the 360 back in the day. Now, I haven't beaten Red Dead Redemption 2. I did beat Red Dead Redemption 1 back then, but I remember nothing, right? It was like 15, 20 years ago. Is that right? No, not 20 years ago. It was a while ago. And as much fun as I've had playing Red Dead Redemption 2, I did like the idea of revisiting the original Red Dead Redemption, even though I think I may inadvertently spoil some story beats for myself since I'm sort of playing them in tandem at this point, but nonetheless, I could have gotten a physical version of this, but I really didn't want to pay like $50 for it necessarily, considering, it wasn't a version that had been significantly enhanced. And if I was going to buy a physical version of it, I would probably get the PS4 version, because I believe that will run at 60 FPS if you play it on a PlayStation 5. So I think of the versions that you could conceivably get between Xbox, PlayStation 5, and the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation is probably the best way to go for that. But ultimately, again, because I'm just kind of loading up Switch 1 games in the hope that some of them will get patched when it comes to the Switch 2, led me to go ahead and take the leap because it was on sale. And again, I had a little bit of, eShop credit thanks to my friend Maro. So Maro, if you're watching, thank you for that. I did finally use it. But that's going to be it for this one. I just thought it would be fun to go ahead and do a pickups video, because I haven't really done one basically for physical stuff in a while. And to be fair, I guess it wasn't pure physical, because I did have some digital stuff thrown in there as well. But yeah, that's it for this one. What about you? Have you picked up any games lately for the Steam Deck or any other platforms? If so, I would love to hear what you've been playing. As far as what's coming up on the channel, speaking of Switch 1 games that are going to get patched to Switch 2, I am going to do a video specifically on that, games that I think need to be patched for the Switch 2. And then secondarily, kind of inspired by this pickups video and some of the overlap that I've got here, I'm also going to make a video about the games that are so good I would love to buy them twice on the Switch 2 if copies come out for that platform, so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for your time and watching channels here on the video. I really appreciate it. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.